I think it's finally time we start doing some timber framing. Now, this is a project that I thought I would have finished by early spring, but now it's July and yeah, it's not really quite done yet. There's no point in dwelling on the past, so let's just try to do it one wall at a time. This is timber that I milled in April, and the plan was to get started building right away. It wasn't until end of May that I actually started prepping the stock, planing and oiling it, and if you saw my last video, that's what that was. And as for what I'm actually building, this is for an enclosure for our ducks, and let me be more clear of how that looks in the next video. So what you're seeing right here is me prepping the tenons for one of the wall posts. I'm using the depth stop on the miter saw to trench cut a bunch to easily clear the waste for the tenon. So obviously I'm not against using power tools where it makes sense to save time, but I do enjoy using hand tools as well. Speaking of which, we're just about the point where we switch over to hand tools for a bit. Now, as you probably can tell, this tenon is kind of offset on this post, and that's on purpose because this is the corner post that sits at the very end of the sill and the top plate beams. And in order to prevent the end grain of those beams from breaking off, we just set the tenon in a bit. And here I'm pulling in the inside of the tenon a bit to make it a bit prettier when it attaches to the beams. Now, I didn't want to mess with the depth stop on the miter saw, so that's why I cut this by hand. And while we have it at a convenient working height, we might as well chamfer the corners a bit. So that's the wall post done, and here you can actually see how close to the end of the beams we are, so that's why you need to inset the tenon a little bit. And if you're paying attention here, you might see in the background that I had prepared some earlier as well. And the piece I'm cutting to length and prepping tenons on here is the corner brace that goes against the wall post we just made. And with this one, every single tenon for the first wall is complete. Now, I'm not showing all of it because it's very repetitive to show on camera, so I hope this is fine. Now, last video, I brought the sill beam down to where the building is going and used the concrete plinths to mark for the mounting brackets. And before we go any further, I really should start drilling for those mounting brackets before I lose the marks. It would be quite annoying if I did. And with those done, now we can turn our attention to the mortises. Since all of these are probably a bit different, I'm using the marking gauge for every single post and making each mortise custom fit to the tenon. And I'm making sure to reference the outside faces from both. And with the bulk of the waste drilled out, I can go to town with a chisel and get rid of all the rest of it. I had initially thought I might use the router there to get rid of some more of it, but it just ended up not really being useful. In this case, the chisel was a lot easier. So, crowbar. Straight up. There we go. Now, I didn't expect to make it fit in the first attempt, but we were pretty close. Just some quick cleanup with the chisel and we're all good. So that was the first mortise, but now, off camera, I cut some more. And we also put the stuff on sawhorses. Turns out working on the floor wasn't very convenient. I thought dry fitting was going to be hard going from the floor, but turns out it wasn't really a big deal. So now again, the last mortise, I kind of got the process dialed in a bit better now, and things are flying almost. I think this last mortise that I cut was about a quarter of the time it took me to make the first one, so quite a big of improvement. Now, chiseling into spruce like this isn't too hard as long as you keep up on sharpening and stropping every once in a while, so you keep that edge of the chisel nice and sharp. Makes it all a lot easier. And sometimes when you're not filming yourself, you don't know what you look like when you're concentrating, and apparently that's what I look like. Now, I made the tenons for these posts a tiny bit too long. I made it really hard for me to clean out the bottom of the mortises, so I decided to cut down a few of them that made it a bit easier to make this all work. And they're still long enough. Here you can see it going in very nicely. Maybe a bit looser than it's supposed to, but there's going to be pegs holding it down anyway, so it's fine if it's not a too tight of a fit. But yeah, it's tight. Now I want to test fit it again, and instead of just putting it down on the floor where it's currently located, I figured I'd clear the slab and test fit it over there, so leave me the sawhorses available for the second wall to start assembling those pieces. Yeah, these are pretty big, but they're not too heavy. There's spruce anyway, it's not like they're oak beams, so it's perfectly manageable to carry them yourself, as long as you make sure you're lifting correctly. And right here we have some of the future tenants going into this shelter. Finding a nice spot here under the cherry tree, eating some of the fruit as they come down. Now, we live basically in the middle of a forest, so there are a lot of predators around, especially foxes. So that's why we need this shelter, so we can keep them safe when we're not out supervising their foraging sessions in the garden. Now, all the work in the video so far has been taking place in one single day. It was June the 7th. And while I'm setting up the mortises for the corner braces, why don't we talk a bit about that? Now, this is probably not going to be interesting to some of you, but I figure I'm not the only one who ends up in these situations. And I'm not just talking about not being able to find time after work or around family time or household chores. I've had plenty of opportunities to complete this project. I often end up in situations like this where I just completely lose momentum. I complete almost all of the work in one day and then nothing happens. And then I get anxious and annoyed that I'm not getting anything done, which further destroys my momentum. And what makes it a bit worse is that spending time in my woodshop is something that really recharges my energy. I feel really good having accomplished something creative. Now, one of the ways to stop self-sabotaging yourself is to realize that you're doing it in the first place. And I'm pretty sure I've realized that at this point. Now, I should say I don't have a diagnosis for anything, but I've done a pre-screening for both autism and ADHD, and yeah, I passed with flying colors, so at some point in the near future, hopefully, I should have a formal evaluation and see. But don't worry, this is not going to turn into a recurring topic on this channel, so if you're not interested in that, don't worry about it. But don't forget to accept emotional support from your family in whatever way it might be delivered. Sen när jag målar här och då färgar det av sig här där det blir trångt. Now I bring this up as a reminder to everyone that if you're struggling in any way, don't forget that there is help to find, and you don't need to suspect autism or anything like that to seek out help. I know this is a personal subject and has been and probably still is a taboo subject in a lot of circles, but for me this is not something that I want to hide anymore. I've spent decades pretending to be normal, masking as it's called. It takes an inordinate amount of energy to do, and last fall I had a severe case of burnout from that, and I'm still recovering from it, and I don't think I can ever go back to being the person I was before the burnout. I'm doing my best right now to set myself up for success so I don't end up in these traps of nothingness where nothing gets accomplished. It's not going to change overnight, but it's getting better and better every day. Anyways, figured I wanted to get the scale of this thing at this point, but it's by far the biggest thing I've ever built, that's for sure. And now we're doing some nailer boards, I guess, that are going to be half-lapped into the posts. The mesh that is going on the outside needs to joint at the middle halfway point, so that's what those are for. Now, I never mentioned why we're doing a timber frame thing here. I went on a weekend course doing timber framing a couple of years back, and this is the first occasion I've actually had to do timber framing since then. Like, we live on an old farm property here in Sweden, and basically every building on this property has some timber framing aspect to it, so figured that's a good skill to have, and it's actually nice to put it to practice for once. So one thing that made it easier for me to actually get back into this build again was to just focus on one thing at a time. I was so dead set on getting the whole thing done, so that's why I just switched focus on this thing for now. I just want to build this wall, and we'll see where we go from there. And yeah, and this last bit of work we're seeing here, that's taking place on July 7th, so it's 1 month after I got the bulk of the work done. And I think I've said basically everything I can say for now. So let's just enjoy the work that's left and get this wall done. So there we are. That is the first wall completed and completely test fit on the ground here in the barn. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to see the entire structure in this video, but hopefully I should be able to get this done over the summer and have another video out in about a month or so. And I will see you guys in the next one.